Hey, what's going on, everyone? Excuse me. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Wow, can't even speak today. Welcome to episode number 7 of The Rundown. This is the every other day kind of show that I do where I talk about the happenings in the world of movies, if you will. So I hope you all had a great weekend, a great Father's Day weekend. Spent some time with your dads, did some chill and fun stuff, because that's always important. And if you are a dad, I hope you had a good day as well. Hope you were treated well. All right, so yesterday some pretty significant stuff happened in regards to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man, and all of that stuff. So that's going to be the major topic of discussion for today. We got a few other things on the list as well, but that is primarily going to be what we're going to be talking about, because let's face it, that's the meat in the world of movie news today. So yes, let's dive into it. So last week, take you guys a little bit backwards before we move forwards with the happenings. So last week, Kevin Feige made it very clear that Venom, Silver and Black, and the other Spider-Verse projects, I'm going to be calling it Spider-Verse because they're all Spider-Man characters, all the Spider-Verse projects in development would not be part of the MCU, and Marvel Studios would have nothing to do with them. They would be solely Sony projects. Makes sense. They're making Venom R-rated, and, they only really wanted to use Spider-Man in the MCU for right now. Well, the discussion, to put it simply, has now changed, as during a recent interview with Film Starts, Sony Pictures head Amy Pascal, sitting alongside the man himself, Kevin Feige, revealed that the Tom Holland Spider-Man / Peter Parker character will in fact exist in the same universe as Venom, Silver and Black, and the rest of the Spider-Verse films. If you've seen the clip, which I'm sure you have, they're making memes of Kevin Feige by now. You know what she says, but I'll go ahead and read the transcript for you. So she goes on and she says, "Well, those movies will all take place in the world that we are now creating for Peter Parker. There'll be adjuncts to it, and it may be in different locations, but it will still all be in the same world, and they will be connected to each other as well." At that point in the video, that is where Kevin Feige looks over a little surprised and a little taken aback by what Amy Pascal has said. We'll get into his reactions in a second here, but this is naturally contradictory to what Sony actually had previously stated regarding the development of their Spider-Verse. Because they originally confirmed that these films would be separate and Sony-only projects. So, to put it simply here, either Amy Pascal is clearly clueless and out on another planet and doesn't really know what's going on with her studio and stuff like that, or, some people are lying, or their deals haven't quite come together yet. So, there's some weird stuff going on here. But what does this all mean? Because ultimately, it has to mean something, right? Because she wouldn't just go out there and say that uninformed. At least I would hope she would not. So there's two kind of scenarios that I look at it here. One is kind of a more negative scenario, and the other is a little bit more positive. So basically, the first scenario here is the possibility of Sony and Marvel striking a new deal to continue their collaborations with Spider-Man and maybe bring in some other characters. It'll allow for their universes to coincide, and it's looking, relatively likely like a deal will happen, because we already have a release date for Spider-Man 2. Tom Holland made some comments a couple weeks ago saying that there's a third one in development and they have plans for a third one. So I have little doubt that this deal with at least Spider-Man will continue. It's just, is the other baggage that goes with it going to be involved? And then, Feige comments, his comments on future MCU films, he made some comments last week regarding R-rated MCU films, the possibility of R-rated films. Those comments make a little bit more sense now, because he didn't flat out say no. He didn't completely reject the idea. He said that maybe down the road they would be open to it. Now, next year isn't necessarily down the road, but it also shows that if they choose to make Venom part of the MCU, Feige was definitely open to it. There was something out there showing that he was down to clown around in the R-rated atmosphere, I guess you could say. So it makes a little bit more sense for Venom to now be a part of the MCU with those statements he had said, and it would also make it the first R-rated installment in the MCU. Now, those are all good things there, and I think that the first one of those, the possibility of them striking a deal to continue this partnership, is incredibly likely. Nothing official has been said yet. I want to make that clear. But on the flip side, and this is kind of where I myself am leaning after watching the video and hearing some stuff, it's a little bit weird and a little towards the negative side to that. So if you've seen the video, which I really urge you to go see that interview because Feige's reaction is priceless, his body language really speaks for itself. I mean, it really does. His face, he looks like he was taken aback by this. It was kind of taken off guard by what Pascal had said. It definitely initially feels like the two of them were not on the same page, and I would be kind of nervous if that is the case because that's not good. But it could also mean that she's revealing some stuff that Feige isn't necessarily ready for her to reveal. This could be something that ties into the Infinity Wars film, the Avengers Infinity Wars coming out next year. A lot of people have been speculating that we're going to get the black suit, the black symbiote, maybe towards the end of Infinity War or in a post-credit scene or something like that. So maybe this is all something where like he heard it and he's like, "Whoa, are you going to ruin one of my movies here? Come on, don't do this kind of stuff." Or is it the fact that they're not on the same page with where their partnership lies? We don't really know. Hopefully we get some answers to that. But, at the moment, and this is kind of interesting, I kind of get this vibe. At the moment, it feels like we have a one-way relationship here between the two. This ultimately means that, Spider-Man will... he's absolutely going to be a cross-studio character, because let's face it, Sony ultimately owns him, but he is now a part of the MCU, and with this deal that Sony and Marvel have, they're making movies with the character. They're making Spider-Man movies. So Sony, if they want, could have Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Spider-Man show up in Venom. It's completely possible. They own the character, and Marvel, unfortunately, wouldn't be able to do anything about it, at least to my knowledge. And it shows that he'll be used in the MCU along with the Sony-only films, like I just said. So, however, I don't necessarily see the MCU lending any of its characters or the things that they own to the Sony-only films. It's definitely going to be the other way, where Sony will let the MCU use Spider-Man, and then as a result, he'll kind of be in the other films. And I guess you could say that the MCU and the Sony-only Spider-Verse films are connected. I guess that's a loose term you could say. And it also, weirdly enough, it made me think of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It might be a case of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where it takes place in the MCU, and not only Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess you could consider the Defenders TV shows stuff as well, could kind of fall into this category. It'll take place in the MCU, but the events of the Sony-only films will probably not be referenced by the MCU whatsoever, unless, say, they kill off Spider-Man, which... that's not going to happen. Come on. But I could be completely wrong, on that. It could happen. The MCU could reference Venom or symbiotes and stuff like that. But Feige looked incredibly awkward when Pascal brought that up. So I'm leaning towards the fact that that is probably not going to happen. Now, just to kind of put a cap on this, or to kind of conclude my thoughts on the second half of this, I do think that this is ultimately a good thing. Because let's put it this way. How the hell do you do the Venom movies and the Black and Silver film without Spider-Man? I mean, I'm sorry. How do you do this Spider-Verse without the titular character? It's like, I've said this before, it's like Gotham. You're playing in the Batman sandbox without using Batman, and it feels a little weird. Now, granted, I think a Venom solo movie could be really, really cool, especially if they're going for this R-rated. They've got Tom Hardy on. I mean, there's a lot of potential for that to be good. But eventually, you're going to have to bring in Spider-Man, and it'll just feel weird if you have a Spider-Verse without Spider-Man. So ultimately, I do think that they're going to strike a deal here. I really, really do, because I think it would be quite lucrative for both companies here. It'll be really, really good for Sony because, once again, I think that their relationship with Marvel, it's not only helped Marvel include arguably the most popular character that the company has ever created and owns. It's not only good for them because they now can use him and stuff, but it's good for Sony because they're now part of a larger universe that is incredibly successful. Obviously, Feige's going to have input on what they decide to do moving forward and whatnot. So yeah, I think that this is a good thing. I think a deal will be made between the two companies to continue the relationship. The question is, though, will this Spider-Verse be a part of it? I don't really know. No one has an answer, but I'm hoping that we get some sort of answer really, really soon. So I know that was a lot, guys, but there's a lot to cover regarding this thing because it was just a giant bomb that was thrown at us, and we were just kind of like, what? You guys are saying conflicting things. You're definitely not on the same page, or someone's lying, or you're hiding secrets because it's going to ruin a potential plot point for a film. I don't know what's going on, but it's very, very interesting. It does have me intrigued. So what do you all think? Do you think that Pascal was lying? Do you think that she is clearly out there not on the same page as Feige and all that stuff like that? Let me know your thoughts on this whole debacle down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you, or in the chat board. And it sees we do have a comment in here. You don't think Pascal was lying with regards to the whole Spider-Verse MCU thing? I think what may have happened is that Sony was going to do Venom without Spider-Man and then realized it was never going to work. That's a good point. I think a solo Venom movie could work without Spider-Man simply because there's enough mythology there. They've done Venom-only comic book runs, Secret Agent Venom, a whole bunch of stuff. They've done stuff with just Venom and then Venom and Carnage where I think that it could work. It's just when you get to later down the road with the character, what else are you going to do? I mean, Venom and Spider-Man kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of important going together. So I feel like eventually they would have to bring in Spider-Man. Also, if there's anything to be learned from the Sony hacking emails in 14, is Pascal has a habit of dropping the ball. That is 100% true. I mean, all you have to do is look at The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm one of the few people who will minorly defend that film, but there's that. I don't know. Something's up with Pascal. She might be loopy on some sort of thing. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the whole Venom thing. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section or in the chat board. Moving on. All right, we got another topic here, and it has to do with Transformers. Dealing with the Transformers universe. Fun stuff here. So we got Transformers The Last Night. It's hitting theaters this week. I'm relatively optimistic. I like what I've seen from most of the trailers. I think they've gotten increasingly better as they've been released. Praying this is one that Michael Bay knocks out of the park. It sounds so ridiculous that it might actually work. But it will also it'll mark the 5th installment in the franchise and also the final Michael Bay directed feature, as we've just found out. I don't know if he's going to actually keep to that, but we'll see. I hope that it is the last one. It's time for him to move on. We need to get fresh blood in there, do different things in this Transformers universe, and that's basically what they're doing with this Bumblebee spinoff, which is what this topic's about. So plans for a Bumblebee spinoff have already been set in motion with the release date set for June 8th, 2018. Next year. Wow. It's crazy to think about. Anyways, we got Leica CEO and Kubo and the Two Strings director Travis Knight attached to direct, and Haley Steinfeld, who, for those of you who don't know, she was the girl in Edge of 17. She was phenomenal in that. I think that she's a really, really solid actress. She's being eyed for a key role in the film, the lead role in the film. And it's looking more and more like this new installment is going to be much different than the previous Bay films. It's going to be a little smaller, a little bit more contained, have a different tone and feel to it. They're not going to be giant, bombastic spectacles. So in a recent interview with Steve Weintraub from Collider, Transformers producer, excuse me if I butcher this name, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura made several statements regarding the upcoming spinoff and the future of the franchise. So I'm going to read these statements and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. So, I know we're doing a spin-off first in the Bumblebee movie, and that is a very distinct departure from what you've been used to seeing so far. dot dot dot. The objective of the movie is to develop more time with less robots in a way and go back to 1985 and go back to sort of the original heritage, if you would, of the Transformers G1. So that's interesting, looking like we're going to have a film set in the 80s, 1985 to be exact. Transformers is very much a product of the 80s, so it'll be interesting to see the 80s stylized stuff kind of come back into that. And I guess you could look at this Bumblebee spin-off as a prequel, kind of like a precursor to the first Transformers, get his adventures with Haley Steinfeld and stuff like that before he met Sam Witwicky. Could be cool stuff. All right, the next comment here says, so it has a very distinct idea in it, and then whatever is going to happen with the chemistry is what's going to happen. But it really is a young female lead opposite Bumblebee, and I think Optimus is going to be jealous that Bumblebee has his own movie. Well, okay, Optimus has kind of had his own film in the previous Transformers movies. He is the main character. All the stories seem to kind of focus around him, so he won't be too jealous. But I do like the dynamic of Bumblebee and then a female lead going back and forth. I think that could be really, really fun. There could be special chemistry there. There could be a nice bond created, maybe even a stronger bond that we saw with Sam and Bumblebee, which was already, I happen to think, a pretty decent bond. Next statement here is, there are dramatically less Transformers. We hired purposefully Travis Knight, who is a very distinct filmmaker. You can't compete with Michael. You're going to lose. And also, I think the audience wants something different all the time. Let's keep them interested. They're going to get a very emotionally complex story, a very tight story in terms of its location and in terms of its storytelling. So this right here is incredibly important. Like I said, it's going to be a smaller, more contained film, emotionally complex. That's always good. Tight as far as not loose edges kind of going around. Like I said, it's going to be a very self-contained thing, which is kind of going to be a breath of fresh air for this Transformers franchise, that it just seems to be all over the place. It's like for every decent film that they make, I happen to think 1 and 3 are decent films. Go ahead and crucify me if you want. They make an equally awful film. I mean, 2 and 4 are just so bad. So I think this is exactly where they want to go. And obviously, Travis Knight, if you've never seen Kubo and the Two Strings, I think that is an incredible animated feature. It was probably my favorite animated film of last year. I agree. I think he's the perfect choice to tackle this, because in the next statement, you'll find something out that makes this even more of a great idea to get someone like Travis Knight on board. So I'll read the last statement here. In fact, it reminds me a little bit of Iron Giant years ago when I did that movie at Warner Brothers. It just reminds me a little bit of that, where it was very contained and yet it didn't feel small. That's key right there. If they're making something that feels like Iron Giant, wow, that is a complete deviation from what we've been getting with the Bay films. I also think that it makes for a more compelling story. Like he said, they're trying to make something very emotionally complex. And if you're going that sort of Iron Giant route, you're definitely going to get that. And then going back to Travis Knight, that's exactly why you bring someone like him on, because as evident by Kubo and the Two Strings, he was able to make a fantastical film with very close, deep, intimate, emotional moments regarding family, and you were able to, it hit hard, to put it simply. And I think he'll be able to do the same thing here. Granted, this is his first live-action outing. However, if we're going off of that track record, look at Brad Bird. He did Incredibles. And then he went on to do Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I happen to think might be my favorite Mission Impossible in the franchise. So there's that. But this is all very, very interesting and reassuring news that for this new Transformers direction that they're going to go after Michael Bay is finished, it looks like they're going to scale it down and focus on character-driven stories with less Transformers, but we're going to get more development from these Transformers. So it'll almost be like a trade-off. We'll get maybe like Bumblebee and another Autobot, and then maybe like a villain Decepticon, but we're going to get more character development from them and more chemistry and explore their relationships a little bit more. So it feels like a better trade-off, because let's face it, guys, the Michael Bay Transformers movies aren't really known for their character development. So that's something I would like to see from this, especially from a character like Bumblebee, which we already have an emotional attachment to. He's been with us since the first one. I think this is just Great news here. I can't wait to see what they do with this film. And it's only coming out next year, so we don't even, less than a year away now. So can't wait to see what happens with that. So, let me know your thoughts on the Bumblebee solo film down in the comment section below, or in the chat board if you're watching me live. Oh, thank you, Owen. That face is lovely. All right. But yes, just let me know your thoughts and opinions on the Bumblebee solo film. Good stuff here. And it's taking place in the 80s. Come on. You got to love that. All right, moving on to our final topic of today. Three topics, but pretty meaty stuff. So this has to do with Godzilla 2, a film that I am actually excited for. So I wasn't a huge fan of the first Godzilla, so that's why I'm actually excited for this one. Anyways, so production is officially underway on Godzilla 2, and Warner Brothers recently released a press statement revealing a synopsis of the film along with the list of the cast members. So the film was heavily rumored to be titled Godzilla King of Monsters, which I think is a phenomenal title for this. I love it because Godzilla is the king of the monsters, and the only person he'd have to fight for that position is King Kong himself. And they're gonna have a showdown in like 2020 or 2022 or something like that. Who knows? Anyways, the film actually is never referred to by that name in the statement, so it actually might not be the title of the film, which is a little sad, but maybe they can come up with something better. Who knows? So I'm going to read you guys the synopsis, and then I'll list the cast, and then just get excited about Godzilla 2. So the synopsis for Godzilla 2 reads as follows. The new story follows the heroic efforts of the zoological, that is a weird word to say, I have to say, cryptozoological agency Monarch, as its members face off against a battery of god-sized monsters, including the mighty Godzilla, who collides with Mothra, Rodan, and his ultimate nemesis, the three-headed king Ghidorah. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm really not a big Godzilla monsters know-it-all kind of guy, but anyways, when these super ancient species, thought to be mere myths, rise again, they all vie for supremacy, leaving humanity's very existence hanging in the balance. Now that's a badass synopsis if I ever read one. Mothra, Rodan, and then obviously Ghidorah, his arch nemesis, the three-headed dragon dude. I know who he is. It sounds like this film's going to be one hell of a showdown. We're going to get 3 battles with these monsters, maybe even like a giant team-up of the 3 versus Godzilla. Oh, that gets me excited. And actually starts to get me thinking, are we going to see King Kong in this film? Because, you know, it would almost be really, really cool if, like, Kong came in at the end just to, like, smack down Mothra or something like that, and they have this giant battle where the two of them are fighting side by side because they have to, and then as a result, something happens at the end, and, like, Kong and Godzilla get into a monster feud or something like that. I don't even know how that would happen. They can't even speak to each other. But they get into some kind of feud, and then ultimately it leads into Godzilla versus Kong. I have a feeling that that's going to be how that movie turns out, because Godzilla versus those 3, that's I get it, he's Godzilla, he's the king of the monsters, but like, it feels like it might be a little too much for the guy. Anyways, I think that sounds pretty damn awesome. But Godzilla 2 will be helmed by Trick or Treat and Krampus director Michael Dougherty. Can't even speak. And we'll see the return of Ken Watanabe, Sally Hawkins reprising their roles from the original Godzilla, along with newcomers Vera Farmiga, Kyle Chandler, Millie Bobby Brown, Bradley Whitford, Thomas Middleditch, Chance Dance, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son, who was in Straight Outta Compton, Aisha Hinz, and Zhang Zi. So pretty solid cast there. We got Kyle Chandler, Millie Bobby Brown. We already knew about a lot of these castings, so it's not really news. It's just kind of compiling all into one thing. So, like I said, with my theories about Kong jumping at the end, it's obviously going to lay the groundwork here for the epic showdown between Godzilla and King Kong in 20-whatever, when Godzilla vs. King Kong comes out. It's going to follow up this movie, and Godzilla 2 is scheduled to hit theaters March 22nd, 2019. 2 years away. I don't know. I'm pretty excited for this. Like I said, this synopsis gets me even more amped than I already was. So there's that. But But yeah, what do you guys think of this? Do you like the synopsis? Do you think that Kong is going to come in and fight alongside Godzilla to get rid of these monsters, and then something's going to happen and they'll ultimately end up fighting each other? What do you guys think? And what do you think of this synopsis? Does it sound exciting? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, or if you're watching me live, there's a chat board right there. You can chime in to me. There's only one of you watching, so if you're interested, you can leave your thoughts and opinions right there. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have on the list today for the rundown. It was a little longer episode, but I got some beefy topics, especially with that Venom and Sony-ish at the beginning. So yeah, if you liked this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends who might be interested in some quick movie news thoughts, all your movie-loving friends, and then be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more movie reviews. I do this every other day, so we'll have more of these episodes, and there's other episodes that you can check out from the past. So there's stuff here for every one of you movie lovers. All you gotta do is just click around and I'm sure you'll find something. And then also be sure to like Men vs. Movies on Facebook and follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men v. Movies. And lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, excuse me, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that's going to do it for this installment of The Rundown, guys. See you next time. Take care.